Hello again, and welcome back to the Slow Flowers Podcast with Deborah Prinzing, episode 494. This is the weekly podcast about slow flowers and the people who grow and design with them. It's all about making a conscious choice, and I invite you to join the conversation and the creative community as we discuss the vital topics of saving our domestic flower farms and supporting a floral industry that relies on a safe, seasonal, and local supply of flowers and foliage. This podcast is brought to you by slowflowers.com, the free online directory to more than 850 florists, shops, and studios who design with local, seasonal, and sustainable flowers, and to the farms that grow those blooms. It's the conscious choice for buying and sending flowers. And thank you to our lead sponsor for 2021, Farmgirl Flowers. Farmgirl Flowers delivers iconic burlap wrap bouquets and lush, abundant arrangements to customers across the U.S., supporting more than 20 U.S. flower farms by purchasing more than $9 million of U.S.-grown, fresh and seasonal flowers and foliage annually, and providing competitive salaries and benefits to 240 team members based in Watsonville, California, and Miami, Florida. Discover more at farmgirlflowers.com. For each podcast episode this year, we will also thank three of our major sponsors. Our first sponsor thanks goes to Longfield Gardens, which provides home gardeners with high-quality flower bulbs and perennials. Their online store offers plants for every region and every season, from tulips and daffodils to dahlias, caladiums, and amaryllis. Check out the full catalog at longfield-gardens.com. Today, we have two great guests involved in Rooted Farmers. You first met Amelia Ilo, founder of this innovative platform for selling flowers, a little more than a year ago when Rooted Farmers first launched. What a year to start, right? As the resilience of flower farms, large and small, was tested in 2020, it was a surprisingly good year for launching the new Rooted Farmers platform. Recently, when I had a chance to see a full demo of all the new features that have been built into the inventory and sales tools that Rooted Farmers offers, I asked Amelia if she would share an update with the Slow Flowers podcast audience. At the same time, I suggested we invite a customer, a user of the platform, to share the farmer's point of view. And Amelia suggested our second guest, Haley Billop of Eddy Farm in Newington, Connecticut. It was serendipity because ever since I met Haley a few years ago at a gathering of Connecticut flower farmers and florists, I've wanted to learn more about her and Eddy Farm and learn about her involvement in the new Connecticut Cut Flower Collective. Here's a bit more about both women. Amelia Ilo is the owner of Reverie Flowers, a Slow Flowers member farm based in Etna, New Hampshire. Reverie grows specialty cut flowers, forages for abundant native species, and is wholly committed to sustainable practices in every decision they make. In 2019, Amelia began to shape the idea for Rooted Farmers, and you can hear that story in episode 438 from January 2020, and I'll share the link in today's show notes. Slow Flowers endorses the Rooted Farmers platform, and we are happy to announce that for 2021, Amelia is extending the free membership credit to Slow Flowers members. Use the promo code SLOWFLOWERS2021 when you sign up, and you'll see that in our show notes. We will have these details and some screenshots of how the platform works as well. Andy and Haley Billop own Eddy Farm, a 60-acre, fourth-generation family farm in central Connecticut, just minutes from Hartford. Haley and Andy grow a mix of vegetables and cut flowers, and they sell produce and cut flowers through their roadside farm stand. Eddy Farm also offers event floral design and on-farm floral workshops, as well as selling flower and food crops to restaurants and floral designers. Andy and Haley have known each other since they were tiny, as their mothers and fathers were good friends. They met up in Boulder when they both moved there after college. They soon moved together to a little house on the Colorado Plain and began hunting and growing all the food they ate. They learned to preserve and butcher and grow, and when their family offered a place at the farm in Connecticut, they knew it was the next logical step for the kind of land-based life they wanted to live. They now farm and raise two young children together at this very special place. There's a rich history behind this modern-day agricultural enterprise, and I've shared a link to that story in our show notes for today's episode 494 at deborahprinzing.com. Let's jump right in and get started. Welcome back to the Slow Flowers podcast with Deborah Prinzing. And today I'm so excited to introduce two guests. First, we have Amelia Ilo of Reverie Flowers and Rooted Farmers. Hi, Amelia.
Hi, Deborah.
Welcome back. You're a return guest. And our new bonus guest, Haley Billup of Eddy Farm in New Haven, Connecticut. Hi, Haley.
Hi there. We're actually in Newington, Connecticut.
Oh, Newington. Okay. So sorry. I gave you a new city. It's Connecticut. Haley and I met, we were just reminiscing. We met a couple years ago when there was a informal gathering of farmers and florists in Connecticut at Trout Lily Farm. And that was the first time we actually met in person. That was a beautiful day.
That was wonderful. Back when we could all meet together.
Yeah. And that was actually kind of the beginning of the kind of collective that's happening in Connecticut. So we're going to talk about that too. Those of you who are regular listeners will remember that January of 2020, Amelia joined us as a guest to basically launch and unveil this new platform of selling called Rooted Farmers. A lot has happened, Amelia, in the last year. I don't think we could have predicted that COVID was going to knock our worlds off off the axis, but I guess you rolled with it. And so I would just like to have you give us an update about what's happening with Rooted Farmers. And then Haley is a established flower farmer who has multiple channels of sales. And Haley's going to just talk about all of that, but specifically how she works with Rooted Farmers. So we'll let you jump in a bit, Haley, okay?
Yep.
Okay, great. And by the way, everyone, we're doing this over Zoom, so there's a little bit of weirdness with technology, but we're gonna make it work. Okay, so a lot has happened in 2020, as we said, Amelia, and Rooted Farmers was sort of nimble. Like you read the tea leaves and figured out how to make some adjustments. And maybe you could give us first of all a snapshot of where you're at now, and then maybe some of the things that you have added to enhance the platform.
Yeah, absolutely. I think COVID has just been so devastating in so many ways, but I think it's really important to look for signs of encouragement and hope. And I think that throughout all of this, it was just so incredible to watch so many small farms really adapt last year. And just, I think you've used the word resilience in describing them. And I think that's just a perfect descriptive for them. And so that was really, I think, impactful for us because it really pushed us to do the same and to really respond to, changes that we were seeing, changes that a lot of our growers were experiencing, and be able to build for them. And that's our goal at the end of the day, is to make sure that what we're putting out there really does solve the problems of these small farms, because I think there are a lot of tools out there that are options, but so few of them are actually designed by farmers. And so I think that's really kind of what's really critical for us, is being able to take that.
So give us sort of the elevator pitch snapshot of what is Rooted Farmers and, how people can plug in.
Sure, absolutely. So Rooted Farmers is, it's really a kind of combination online marketplace for specialty cut flower growers. We don't work with any importers. We don't work with any sort of, wholesalers that are coming on and potentially introducing imports into the supply chain. We only work with small flower farms. So that's really important to us. We are really kind of built as an analog to Etsy. So if you think about Etsy, where crafters are able to come on and, set up their own profile, their own shop, be able to offer their own products, and then connect directly with audiences who are really looking for those types of specialty items. We do the same sort of thing, but we do it for flowers and flower-related products. So we're an online marketplace. You come on as a grower, you set up your shop, and then you can connect with either wholesale buyers, so think florists and designers, or retail folks. So if you're doing CSAs, if you're doing retail consumers, if you're working with folks, our farm I know does a lot of pre-orders, for example. So we have a CSA pickup on Wednesdays, and then can also offer pre-orders to folks for the same day. So really offering a solution that addresses all of those. Yeah.
That's cool. I think that the interesting thing is that when you first started, you were focused specifically farmer to florist, but because of changes in how people were trying to move product in 2020, that's when you added the consumer facing component, right?
That's true. Yeah. So obviously, weddings and events kind of went out the window in 2020, and that was really a driver to a lot of wholesale. It was really fun to watch a lot of florists, and I know Haley has a number of these folks who the florists did pivot last year, and instead of during that peak wedding season doing mostly events, there was a lot more in the subscription department. Folks who were doing these weekly sustainable flower subscriptions, and so that was really fun to watch. But yes, we did start with wholesale. That was what we were originally intended to do. And then we, over the course of the year, had requests from a lot of folks who said, look, my wholesale just isn't happening in the same volume, and we need to be able to use the Rooted platform because we need all of these tools that you offer, but we have to be able to do it with our retail customers, folks who are just ordering, who want to get their pre-orders every week. And so we said, okay, well, we will build this solution that essentially allows you to list the same product and have a wholesale price for it and a retail price for it. And you're just dictating what is your markup. So, if I sell these zinnias at 85 cents a stem and I want to apply a 25 or a 30% markup for my retail customers, then I'm able to differentiate my pricing between my designers who, I really want to be able to offer them that wholesale price, or, my
everyday consumer.
Yeah, my everyday consumers who ought to be paying not the wholesale price,
right?
Not the discounted price.
I think that's really neat. And you have walked me through a demo of that, Amelia, and it's interesting because, the way your brain works, you're looking for the simplest solution. So it's like, we still only have one inventory per farm. We just have a different metric for the upcharge for retail. And that seems a lot easier than having to maintain two entire price lists, which just no one has time. That's why they're using Rooted Farmers, because they don't have time to do all the desk work.
Totally. Yeah. That is, I think, that's probably one of the most consistent concerns from farms, not specific to Rooted, just in general. It's the idea that across all of these different channels, you're getting texts from people, you're getting Instagram DMs, you're getting requests on maybe your farm's website, you have an availability list that's going out to people, and you're trying to manage all of these different channels. And that's a lot of time that just isn't, it's not something that's sustainable for most people. And it's also not really value add work. The things that we do as farmers that can't be replaced by anybody else, or the growing flowers piece of it, and all of the other work, I think can be really draining, but it can also just it takes a tremendous amount of time that just isn't value add time for us.
Well, let's get Miss Haley in on this and hear a little bit about her experience. Haley, first of all, thanks for joining us. And can you just give us a snapshot of Eddy Farm? Because I feel like you're definitely not a beginner, and you have I don't even know how many years you've been farming, but I'd love to hear your story.
I would love to. And thank you so much, Deborah, for inviting me on here. And it's really fun to be on here with Amelia too. We've gotten to know each other really well in the last year. We're entering our 10th year of farming. I run Eddy Farm with my husband, and we do cut flowers and also a handful of vegetable crops. And so we kind of split our work time between our farm stand, which is a very busy 7 days a week for 3 months out of the year farm stand, and then also our entire flower business, which just keeps growing and growing and growing every year. Beyond that, we have probably been doing the flower stuff professionally for 7 years now, and concentrating more and more on wholesale this year. And then 2 years ago, in 2019, we teamed up with a number of other flower growers in Connecticut, because there actually seems to be a sort of a smaller density of flower growers in Connecticut for whatever reason, but we also have really excellent markets because a lot of people do destination weddings in this area.
Right.
And we started a growers collective to be able to bring local flowers to a wider range of customers, because plenty of florists wanted the local flowers. But, I couldn't pack the kids in my minivan and all the flowers in there and drive for 7 hours.
No, that's not sustainable.
And bring the flowers around to everybody. So, we started the collective, which now has taken wing on its own and is becoming something very, very interesting. And the collective is the organization that uses Rooted as our pre-order
platform.
See.
Yeah. I just want to mention, we did hear just a little bit about the Connecticut Flower Collective right in the early stages. Evelyn Lee was on from Butternut Gardens, maybe about 2 years ago, kind of hinting at it. And so, my observations, Haley, are that you've got all these, as you said, destination weddings. You've got a lot of florists who probably back in the day would drive into Manhattan to buy their flowers from Connecticut. And now they're looking around and saying, hey, there's growers closer to me. This could be a lot better situation. And plus they're sort of becoming enlightened about local flowers. And it's a wonderful harmonic convergence that's happened because I think because you have a sophisticated customer base, being close to the vortex of design and style in New York. I don't know if you would agree or not, but they're looking for your product.
Yes, definitely. I mean, I think that as we all know, this is becoming more and more of a thing nationwide. Perhaps no small thanks to you personally, but also, all of the farms that are stepping up and learning how to grow things that people are looking for. And now with COVID, supply chains being completely messed up from international sources. The net just keeps getting wider and wider. And I think there's a certain look also that people are going for, and you can really only achieve that with local flowers, which is wonderful.
Are you a farmer florist too, Haley? Do you do a lot of design yourself?
I do. Yeah, we do somewhere between 10 and 20 weddings per year. And I love doing that, especially something that's like really big and outlandish. I have a wonderful client in New Haven at the Peabody Museum, and we do their openings for their shows, and we get to go really
oh my goodness
with our design. So I tend to be my design aesthetic is like more on the artsy side. I actually studied art in school, so I like to get a little bit interpretive with my flowers. But
why have I never seen these photos of the Peabody Museum? I'm going to chase you down and let's do.
It's really hard to take photos in there because it's usually in their geology room, which is very dark.
Okay.
Flowers look great in.
All right, that's your challenge, is to figure out how to photograph that for a story on museum installations. I mean, that is like I don't know, just the dream gig that so many people never get a chance to experience. So congratulations. So Haley, you were saying that you have migrated to selling a lot of your flowers through the ones that aren't for your own weddings and events through the Connecticut Flower Collective. And has that just been from 2019 and 2020?
That's correct. Yeah, we started the collective officially in 2019.
Okay.
So we'll be entering our third season with that organization at this point. But before that, I was doing what Amelia was describing. I was sending out, 20 or 30 pictures once a week to a list of florists and hoping that it didn't all get pinged back to me. And then driving a delivery route on Thursdays every week to bring flowers out to people.
So the Connecticut Collective, it has a 1 day a week hub or drop off and pick up, or how does that work?
Right. Yeah, so we have a location, and all the farmers bring everything to one location in Wallingford, which is pretty central in Connecticut, on Wednesdays in the morning. And so people can do pre-orders. They do their pre-orders through Rooted, but they can also buy stuff off our floor. So we bring a lot of additional stuff because, of course, every florist wants to see what they're buying in person. When I completely agree with that, and there's always something special there. So I think we've had a huge amount of success with growers of all sizes being able to sell quite a bit of product through that. And as more and more people learn about it, we kind of went through a huge growth spurt in 2020. And we're almost thankful for the reduction in weddings this year, because I think we would have been completely overwhelmed.
Right. And one of the things I'm thinking about, and I want to ask Amelia to jump in here and talk about like this kind of shift that you're alluding to with using some kind of pre-order model. It seems to me that from a farmer's point of view, having pre-orders is such a positive way to move product, because you're harvesting to order, and then you're not having as much shrink, I would imagine, even though you are bringing like those yummy extras, in a few juicy buckets to the floor sales. But has that been the case for you, Haley, that you kind of cut to order?
Well, because I'm one of the larger producers in the collective, I probably do 50% pre-orders, and then I bring another about the same amount to sell on the floor.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But that's just because I know the customer base, and I also, generally speaking, if I can't sell it at the collective, I have an outlet for it.
Another place to sell, maybe off your farm or whatever.
Right. Yeah, I'll put them into our mixed bouquets and sell them at our farm stand, or move them in some other way.
Okay. Well, Amelia, can you talk a little bit about this phenomenon of, I think from day one you started hearing from co-ops and collectives, didn't you?
We did. Yeah. It was actually right around when we did your podcast that we started getting a lot of outreach from folks, because, one of the I think there are a number of reasons. One of them is because there's this struggle that as you get larger as a collective and you have more and more farms coming on, but frankly, even in a small capacity, this can be challenging, is this idea of a single admin. In the Connecticut Collective's case, they have one or two people who could take on this role, and we're doing this role before Rooted. And they're responsible for taking all of the product that every single one of these farms has, which, in tulip season might be, half a dozen or a dozen varieties per farm. But in peak production in the summer, you could have 50, 60, 80, 200 items per farm.
Yeah.
And as you're thinking about putting together a list and then managing all of the orders that are coming in from that, and then distributing those out to your farms, and a lot of collectives prepare harvest lists for their growers, that sort of work becomes so incredibly time consuming. And the Rooted platform is just built so that it can take all of that work off of your plate for a collective. Mm-hmm. Everything is aggregated just within the system. And so suddenly all of the administrative time that you were spending, uploading and creating these availability lists and being able to prepare invoices and, track people down for payments and preparing harvest lists, it's all done within the platform. And so now as the admin, you don't have to spend your time in that way. And you can do more relationship building, or you can do, you can focus on what's important to you and to your group, as opposed to doing a lot of this really time-consuming work.
Haley, is Kate Brunson from Maple and Mums still the administrator?
Oh, yes. You did a wonderful podcast with Kate last year, didn't you? I love that. So Kate has been the admin, the market manager for 2019, and she was in 2020 as well. In 2021, we have a young woman named Jill taking over, who's doing a wonderful job. Kate's still definitely very involved, but she has had a huge amount of growth in her wedding business. So she doesn't really have the time anymore. And just kind of circling back to something that Amelia just said. So in 2019, when Kate was our administrator, we were uploading our farms availability. Let's say there were 7 or 8 farms involved, and everybody was putting their availability on a shared Google document or Google Sheet, which, as you can imagine, occasionally got pretty messed up. And also occasionally...
We're over here nodding. Yeah.
Yeah. And also occasionally was too big to save effectively. So then we weren't able to save them all together, and we had to start creating multiple sheets. At any rate, as soon as I met Amelia at Flowering in the North in 2020, February of last year, and she said who she was and what she did, I think I was sitting maybe 4 or 5 seats down from her, and I wrote in my notebook to talk to her. So that was the beginning of Connecticut Flower Collective's relationship with Rooted, because we were actively searching for a better way.
Yeah.
And it seemed that Amelia was presenting that specifically what we were looking for.
Well, it's interesting, just the capacity issue of inventory. I hadn't even thought about that, but it sounds like you guys had pushed Google Docs as far as you could take it, and it wasn't working.
It was interesting, because you'd think that it wouldn't be the case. But I mean, I think that there's also sort of the human factor. You don't want that market manager job to be something that's way too much for somebody who already has other work. And I was just telling Amelia this the other day, that our manager time commitment actually was cut down by 8 hours per week when we started using Rooted.
Wow, that's a fabulous endorsement. I mean, that's a day.
It went down from 18 hours to about 10 hours, with a much, much bigger capacity in 2020 than we were doing in 2019.
So the idea that then how many farmers are in Connecticut Flower Collective right now?
So there are about 30 farmer members.
Wow, that's a lot of inventory, a lot of variables.
Yes.
I didn't mean to cut you off. Were you going to say something else, Haley?
Oh, I was going to say that probably about 15 farmers are on a weekly basis, and the rest of them are just sometimes.
Got it. So that inventory, everybody is through the collective is adding their inventory to their farm profile on Rooted. And then how does it work differently with a collective than, say, an individual farm? Like, I know, Amelia, you through Reverie Flowers, you're selling individually. So what does the florist see when he or she comes to the site that's a little bit different between those two kind of channels?
Yeah, so our farm actually does both. We sell independently, and then we also sell through a collective. So it works kind of in both ways. And it works really nicely because the same inventory list is used for both of those outlets. So I'm not having to manage in a lot of different places the same products and risk, overselling or underlisting in different places. So it can all be managed from the same site. So the big advantages, I think, from the collective's perspective of using a collective interface is that one, if you've got 30 farms who are all listing product, inevitably you're going to have overlap. So you might have 5 different farms who all list, Queen Red Lime zinnias, and they might have pricing that comes in to the admin at anywhere from, 65 cents a stem to $1.05 a stem. And it could be confusing to a buyer who's trying to shop from the collective and saying, well, why is there such a big price range when these look like they're pretty much the exact same flower? And there might be some variability on stem length, but you can tell that from the view on the florist side also. And so I think being able to give collectives, and so Kate last year could go in and edit the prices of these farms' products. So if she saw, one outlier that looked way off, either because they made a mistake in pricing their product or because they just, had a price that maybe didn't look representative or didn't look like what Kate wanted to have out there for the designers, she could go in and change that. So she had this pricing control. And then separately, there's the ability to really coordinate logistics So moving the product, when you're trying to work with 50 or 70 or, frankly, even 10 or 20 buyers, and you want to get everybody on the same schedule for pickup and delivery, it's really important to have a single interface where you can manage all of those relationships effectively. So being able to coordinate all of those deliveries is something that Kate was able to do from there also, because that is an option that's just part of the platform.
Okay.
So it's really, it works in a very similar way. And from the farmer's perspective, there really isn't much of a difference in terms of how they're using the platform. It's really just depends on what's right for your farm and what's right for your collective group, because it is flexible in that way.
When you're talking about the example of the Queen Red Lime zinnias, or say a certain type of dahlia, if you had a big customer of the Connecticut Flower Collective, could they aggregate from multiple farms for their order if they were really, looking for a specific variety or cultivar?
Absolutely. And that's something that they did last year quite a bit, where somebody might be looking for a high volume of some sort of dahlia. And so they're able to look across all of the different options and pull together an order from all of the different growers who are all selling that exact same flower. So it's really helpful as an aggregator like that.
Yeah. And I would imagine, that's the whole point of the collective, right, Haley? Like, you're trying to just give more choice to customers so they don't end up being frustrated on availability.
True. It's twofold. It's more choice, but also those big volumes, because there aren't any members of the collective that are like acres and acres of red celosia or something.
Yeah. So that big epic over the top event isn't going to, put you, you won't have to say no. You can try to find a solution.
Yeah, exactly. I think last year I had a wedding where the bride wanted so much hanging amaranth and I didn't have any left. But I was able to I think I did a 20-foot long table drooping with hanging amaranth that I got from other growers in the collective. And there was a big archway and all kinds of stuff just completely covered in amaranth, which I didn't even have on my farm anymore.
Wow.
And I was able to get from the collective, which is just, we call it the magic of the collective. It somehow always works out that we can get those volumes that we're looking for.
And it also points to just that sense of community, that you're doing business with the wholesale and retail customers, but also amongst yourselves, which is really cool.
I think some of us are each other's best buyers.
Just keep it in the family.
Well, we actually just came up with a mission statement because we're organizing to be a little bit more, more organized this year. We work alone in our fields, or almost alone, and it's really nice to have coworkers and people that you see every week, and you can kind of do a little shop talk. And Amelia's come down to the collective market, and it's really a very nice atmosphere.
That's
even though we're all wearing masks. We're creating a community of colleagues.
That sounds great. Well, I'm excited for 2021. I'm hoping both of you are. Like, we're all kind of in this weird limbo, like we're ready to rock and roll and get back to business, quote unquote, as usual, but we're not quite there yet. So I'm just curious, like how this, technology and these sort of communities are kind of saving us for going forward. Amelia, you want to riff on that a little bit?
Sure. I think this was, I want to echo Haley's thoughts about community, because I think that that's really what brought everybody through last year, especially in the flower community. I think it was a struggle, but it also, I feel like there was so much important growth that came out of it, both for our community, but also for, what we were able to put together because of that community. I think there were so many engaged farmers last year and florists, designers, who were so generous with their feedback and their thoughts, and just being able to be involved in how do we build so that we all come out of this stronger. And so I'm really excited about what we've been able to put together because of that community. And I think that's probably what I'm like just proudest of.
That's awesome.
And I think some of the things that I think are going to be game changers here for this community are, I think we, based off of last year, we were able to, so part of the Rooted platform is that when you're uploading product, you don't have to, as a farmer, give all of the information about that product. So if you have a variety of daffodils, so if you have, the geranium narcissus, you can just select it from the list, and then it populates all sorts of information about that, so that the customers don't have to match exactly what it is that you're describing as the product. They're able to see the photo, they're able to see common names, they're able to see the botanical names if that's how they shop. They're able to really, really understand kind of a breadth of information, whether it's ethylene sensitive or cooler sensitive, things that just really alleviate a lot of pressure on the communication side and make it a really smooth process. But because you're selecting something from this database that we have, we're able to collect information, including pricing. And so pricing is obviously something that growers struggle with. It's a big challenge in this industry, is to really identify, how do you price product correctly? And what does that look like for these specialty items that you maybe can't get comparables for, and through terminal price lists or wherever. And so what we did this year was we said, okay, well, let's look at all of our national sales data, all of the product that's sold. And because we have it by item, we can actually provide guardrails to the growers to say, here's the lowest price that this has ever sold for, and here's the highest price that, this has reasonably sold for. And we're able to look at that and give that back out to growers to help inform them and arm them with more information about how to think about their pricing. So we have a really fun pricing tool. It catches you as soon as you price your product, as long as, we've actually seen a number of growers listing the item as opposed to just a single grower that won't be out there. And we've got lots of great filtering options. So we had a lot of designers who really wanted to shop specific colors or design elements, or how whatever made sense for them in terms of their own shopping habit. Harvest lists I talked about a little bit, but that I actually started crying the first time that I saw that, because it was just like, it saved me over an hour for it's unbelievable, like just the process of clicking a button and all of a sudden I've got my harvest.
Yeah, it is so intuitive. Like you've walked me through the demo on the back end, and there are these like gentle little suggestions, like, do you know you're 20% higher than the average, or I don't know, I'm making that up, but it's just done in a very affirming way that kind of lets, obviously the farmer is still making the decision, but
yes,
it's giving them some parameters. That's really cool. And
it is, and we try to do that throughout. We don't want to tell people how to run their businesses, but we do want to give you information. So we do want to set you up for success and let you make a decision. And it's okay if you don't want to. You don't feel like that price makes sense for you. We're not going to stop you from listing it at that. But at least you have the information, and so then you're coming to the table with a little bit more data behind the decision.
Yeah, and I think your point about the fact that there aren't necessarily comparables at the brand X generic wholesaler, because they've never had that product before. So you've kind of, and yes, your cost of goods sold and all, but you still want to know what the market will bear. So
yeah,
super helpful.
I think. And so some of the other fun things that we saw, and this happened a lot with the Connecticut Collective, was there were a lot of folks who wanted to list items that we didn't have options for before. So there were a lot of dried flower options, a lot of folks selling wreaths, floral art, things that are all being sold by flower farms and part of, how you think about your revenue model. But we weren't set up to do initially. And so that's another change for this year, is we have a lot of different product options out there. So it's not strictly limited to cut flowers. You can offer plant starts. If you've got, extras that you're not using as you're working through your planting season, you can offer all sorts of items. Obviously the retail piece. And then I think Haley touched on this a little bit too, but in visiting her collective last year, it struck me just how much of their sales were really comprised of these sort of in-person market sales, things that, were not pre-orders, but at the same time, they were taking a lot of Kate's time to actually put together, orders and in-person, kind of point of sale invoices for these buyers.
Right. So how does that work?
Yeah. So it really underscored the need for us to be able to solve that problem for them, to be able to give them the ability to actually pull from all of their different farms' inventory and put together, essentially an invoice that didn't have Kate or other admins going in and creating all these different items in Square, and then having to do a whole lot of reconciliation on the bookkeeping side afterwards. So I think, yeah, I'm excited.
That's cool. That's
where
cool.
we've landed and all the different tools.
And I'm imagining when you talked about this database that people can pull from for specific product descriptions and photos, as new things come on and are available, then you are just rolling that you're building that and expanding that database, right?
Definitely. Yeah. We get a lot of great requests from farms saying, hey, you don't have these woodies that I really want to include. Can you add these? And so we just add all of those things as soon as we get those requests in.
How about you, Haley? What are you looking forward to in 2021 as you try to get back to normal? Are your wedding bookings picking up, or what are you anticipating?
Yeah, I mean, there's really a lot that I'm looking forward to in 2021. I think that the way that everything, obviously coronavirus, living in a pandemic, all of the horrible things that have happened to many, many people as a result of it has been awful in many ways, but I know people have talked about silver linings, and the way I can't really imagine things developing now in any other way. The trajectory of the growth of the collective, the trajectory of the growth of Rooted side by side with that of the collective, and a lot of other things that I don't think could have happened without the pause button that coronavirus has been for everybody. So yes, I am looking forward to weddings, and I do love doing weddings, but just from a logistical standpoint, I've got 2 little kids. They're 5 and 6, and Amelia has kids, I know too. Lots of flower farmers have kids.
Oh my gosh. How are you doing that? Homeschooling and farming at the same time. My heart goes out to you guys.
I love it. I do. But it's really just given me an opportunity to examine what my priorities are. And I love being finished with my sales on Wednesday. And I think that
smart.
I think that concentrating more on wholesale for us has been really great, because we are, we specialize in really large volumes of things, and I love being able to sell them all at one place. And then having those really special things for weddings, but that's certainly not where the majority of our stems are going. And I just love how much florists and other designers love our products. It's really gratifying to see how excited they are when they see what there is available locally.
I love it.
And I think also one of the most important things about the collective and about kind of the basis of what Rooted is doing too is it's bringing so many new people into this business. And I know sometimes there's controversy with people feeling like there are flooded markets and things like that, but I absolutely don't feel that way. I feel that the tools and the organizations that we are offering and creating are bringing in amazing people to our industry and growing it in a way that makes it mainstream and just floats all boats.
That is so important, and I'm so glad you brought that up. I totally, I'm in total support of your statement, Haley. There we need more floral buyers. So when there's more farmers, we get more floral buyers and more farmers producing beautiful, local, seasonal, sustainably grown botanicals. Is the floral industry needs that. They're hungry for that. And it's just, they had never had a choice before, or as much choice as they have now. So I'm glad you brought that up.
Absolutely. And I think also that some of the standard wholesalers are really interested in local stuff too. Standard and specialty wholesalers.
Yep.
We work a lot with the Floral Reserve in Providence, which I'm sure you've heard of. There's just a huge demand for this kind of thing. And I think Amelia has come up with some technology that's like really makes it a lot easier for people to get these items.
I agree. And actually, Amelia and I have been like chatting with each other on the side while we're talking. And I wanted to ask her, well, I had asked you earlier, Amelia, if you have like ongoing ways that people can see a demo or learn more. And so can you address that and then also share the benefits for Slow Flowers members to get involved with Rooted Farmers?
Absolutely. So we offer weekly, we call them office hours, but basically a Q&A session on Tuesdays at noon Eastern. And it's basically just a Zoom and a screen share. And we do a lot of, kind of answering any questions, do tours and things like that. So that happens on Tuesdays at noon. We can give you the link for that, Deborah. So if you'd like to include that, you can.
Okay.
And then also for Slow Flowers members, there's a free subscription. So it's the free subscription for 2021. The code that you use, if you'd like to send that out too, or I'm happy to mention it.
You go ahead and mention it. We'll share it in the show notes too.
Sure. So it's Slow Flowers in all capital letters, and then 2021 after that. So that's the code that you would use for your free subscription for Rooted for the year, and it lasts for a full year from the time that you start your.
That's great. Thank you so much for that generous offer. And that is obviously geared toward growers. There's no charge for florists to use the site. And the revenue that supports the site comes from a small fee, percentage of sales that Rooted takes for the transaction, right?
Right. So we have two different membership tiers. So the Essentials is kind of the entry level tier, and that's a 5% flat transaction fee. And the idea is to really make this accessible for farms of any size, so that you're, kind of not having to pony up a whole lot of money up front. And there's no risk in listing. We don't have a listing fee. You can list your product, and you're only really paying for the service when you actually sell product. So the premium tier has a sliding scale for the transaction fees, where it's kind of the more you sell, the less you're paying, and it gives you those economies of scale for larger farms.
Thanks. That's great. Well, I hope that everybody who's listening has kind of felt like they've been part of a fun conversation. I'm really happy to talk about Rooted Farmers, because we have a wonderful partnership between Slow Flowers and Rooted, and we have lots that we want to accomplish in 2021. So, Amelia, thank you. And Haley, what a treat to have you here and to hear more about your beautiful business. I do want to see some photos that I can share in the show notes of some of your over-the-top designs. They sound fabulous.
I'd be happy to share.
That's great. And I do hope I get to come visit you in Connecticut again. That was a wonderful visit. And, I think travel will happen. We'll open up more in the second half of 2021. So I'm optimistic. Thank you both. Any final thoughts, or are we ready to start our Monday here?
I think Haley and I both want to thank you for having us on. This was really fun, and it's always great to catch up with you. And we're just really grateful for everything that you do for the, kind of local flowers movement. And I think, rising tide floats all boats is our 2021 motto.
Absolutely. I agree. Thanks so much. How about you, Haley?
Well, yeah, I just want to echo that general sentiment, and I think that it's really wonderful to make everybody a part of the conversation. So I hope that people who are listening out there who are just starting out feel encouraged by learning about technology like this, or organizations like a collective or anything like that would, to dive into learning about stuff like that. Because I think that since conferences are not happening so much this year, some of those resources are a little bit harder to access. And so it's wonderful to be able to get them out there through every channel possible.
Yeah, that's a great point. Think of the Slow Flowers podcast as your weekly conference that you can attend virtually. All right. Well, thank you both so much. This has been great. And we'll have lots of resources. Amelia's going to share some screenshots of examples that we've discussed on the sort of updated Rooted Farmers platform. And as I mentioned, Haley's, she's been charged with getting me a gallery of beautiful photos from her farm. And I wish you both a great year. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
You too. Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining me today as Amelia, Haley, and I discussed new ways for growers to sell more flowers, both at the wholesale and retail levels. It's an exciting time, and I want to remind you that I published a story about Rooted Farmers as part of a 6-part Slow Flowers Journal series that ran last fall called New Floral Marketing Models and Platforms. I'll share a link to that article for you to check out and learn even more. Our next sponsor thanks goes to Red Twig Farms. Based in Johnston, Ohio, Red Twig Farms is a family-owned farm specializing in peonies, daffodils, tulips, and branches, a popular peony bouquet by mail program, and their Spread the Hope campaign, where customers purchase 10 tulip stems for essential workers and others in their community. You can learn more at redtwigfarms.com. A few more announcements before we wrap up. First, if you listened to last week's interview with Sean Michael Foley and Gina Thresher of Florvana, you may recall that we have a giveaway for the first 10 listeners who register for a free Florvana ticket to attend the online conference taking place March 5th through 7th. You'll hear from more than 20 fabulous presenters and presentations, including the course Robin Avni are co-presenting, The Journey from Blog to Book. The first 10 listeners who register for a free ticket to attend Florvana will receive a signed copy of Sean Michael Foley's new book, I Just Want to Design, The Designer's Survival Guide to Falling in Love with Your Business. We will run the promotion through this Sunday, February 28th, and announce the winners on March 3rd, right before the next Florvana Virtual Summit begins. You can find the link in today's show notes for episode 494. Also in our show notes, you can find the replay video link for the February 18th webinar presented by Johnny Seeds and Slow Flowers. More than 1,500 people attended the free webinar led by Johnny's floral expert, Hillary Alger, and me. It was a fabulous conversation as we covered 4 of the 10 Slow Flowers insights and forecast themes for 2021. If you've missed joining the webinar presentation, you can still go back and watch the replay video, and as I said, I'll have the link in today's show notes. And coming right up, you're invited to join me for a very special webinar hosted by the American Institute of Floral Designers and Slow Flowers, taking place Tuesday, March 8th, 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. It's an honor to moderate this presentation in collaboration with 3 of the AIFD regional presidents, including 2 who are Slow Flowers members. The topic is From Farm to Florist, and we will discuss the benefits and practices to incorporate locally grown flowers into everyday designs and event work. I'm thrilled to say that 4 Slow Flowers members will join the discussion to share their stories and advice for florists. This event is free and open to the public. You can find the registration link in today's show notes, and I hope to see you there. Our final sponsor thanks goes to the Seattle Wholesale Growers Market, a farmer-owned cooperative committed to providing the very best the Pacific Northwest has to offer in cut flowers, foliage, and plants. The Growers Market's mission is to foster a vibrant marketplace that sustains local flower farms and provides top-quality products and services to the local floral industry. Visit them at seattlewholesalegrowersmarket.com. Thanks so much for joining us today. The Slow Flowers podcast has been downloaded more than 694,000 times by listeners like you. Thank you for listening, commenting, and sharing. It means so much. As our movement gains more supporters and more passionate participants who believe in the importance of our domestic cut flower industry, the momentum is contagious. I know you feel it too. I value your support and invite you to show your thanks to support Slow Flowers' ongoing advocacy, education, and outreach activities. You can find the donate button in the column to the right at deborahprinzing.com. I'm Deborah Prinzing, host and producer of the Slow Flowers podcast. Next week, you're invited to join me in putting more slow flowers on the table, one vase at a time. And if you like what you hear, please consider logging on to iTunes and posting a listener review. The content and opinions expressed here are either mine alone or those of my guests alone, independent of any podcast sponsor or other person, company, or organization. The Slow Flowers podcast is engineered and edited by Andrew Brenlin. Learn more about his work at soundbodymovement.com.